Hello and good afternoon, and you see me this time in my study at home, and it is the Wednesday between Christmas and New Year. I know it's been quite a while since I put anything on YouTube, having been very busy. First of all, taking services at St Mary's Parish Church in Hinckley, which has now stopped for the time being. Secondly, I've been preparing to study at Queen's Foundation in Birmingham, where I was very fortunate to have been accepted at the last minute on the undergraduate taster in Black Theology, which I fortunately passed, and also I'm now have now been accepted to do the postgraduate taster course in Black Theology, which will count towards the first year of a master's degree. When I was first contacted by having put a request into Queen's Foundation for a place to study, I had only a little idea of what Black Theology actually was. By the way, if I sound a little bit hoarse, it is because I have got an awful cold at the moment. So it's taking part of my voice out. So I do apologise. Anyway, as I was saying, I got little or no idea what Black Theology was. But thanks to the excellent tutors on the Centre for Black Theology at Queen's, I now have a much better idea. And it is theology, which is actually the theology of black people, mainly of African and Afro-Caribbean and Afro-American people. And the reason that it's called Black Theology, it is fairly obvious to that, but it's a different way altogether of looking at the Bible and the stories in the Bible, what was happening at the time. So it's the background to the stories that were there, and it's a way of interpreting the stories themselves and interpreting how we should react to them in this day and age. It's a very, very interesting way of looking at things. One of the first things that I sort of came across when I was looking at this was the incident that's recorded in the New Testament, or as it's called nowadays, the Christian Testament, is the occurrence when Jesus himself goes into the temple and comes across the money changers and the animal and bird sellers in the temple, and he overturns the tables, casts them all out of the temple courtyard itself. Now, to me, that has always been a story which I can interpret as being Jesus himself seeing his Father's house being defiled by the money changers and by the animal sellers. And he was most unhappy about this. And the other thing, of course, is that it also shows a side of Jesus that we're not always that familiar with, and that is an angry man. And on that occasion, he was a particularly angry man. We don't see that very much else in the story of Jesus. In fact, he had a lot to be angry about. Being sold for 30 pieces of silver. He could have been very angry about that. But he wasn't. He was angry on this occasion because his father's house was being defiled. So then we look at this incident from a point of view of black theology. Now, black theology is also called liberation theology, and it brings with it another type of theology, which I'll go into later, called Womanist theology. Now, the liberation theology in the casting out of the money changers would see it from this point of view. Judea at the time was a land under occupation. It was occupied by the Romans. They had the ultimate say in what went on in the land. And of course, they weren't particularly happy about the Jewish religion carrying on in the country. So we believe that the fact of the matter became that the high priests and those in charge of the temple had actually come to an agreement with the Roman authorities that they would allow the Jewish temple to continue to function, and the price to pay was having the money changers and the animal and bird sellers in the courtyard, but charging an extortionate rate of exchange, if you like, for the money, for the temple money, and also extortionate rates for the animals. That would then explain Jesus' actions when he clears them out of the temple, because he was seen to be liberating the temple and the place of worship for the Jews out of the Roman hands for the time being. I did mention a few minutes ago about womanist theology, and again, this is another strand to black theology, in that if we look at the Bible and we look at and make a note, do a count of how many times men are mentioned by name and their actions and what they have actually done is recorded. And then alongside of it, sorry, I do have this cold, as I say, alongside that, see how many women are mentioned and their actions are recorded. And the answer is that it's very few compared to the men. Of course, women in those days were pretty looked down upon by men, and they had a secondary position in life in those days. So this particular theology also looks at the Bible and at the occurrences that are mentioned in the Bible, both the Hebrew Testament and the Christian Testament, and it also enables you to see things that are happening more from a woman's perspective. Okay, so then we get on to this part, which is not easy for me. I assume as you're sitting watching this, or at least listening to it, that you can see that I am a white man, and I've lived a good bit of my life, so I'm coming towards the latter stages, shall we say. All the students on the undergraduate course that I took, apart from one, were black. We started at 15, we ended at 5, so there was myself and another white guy who took the final assignment, and 3 black women. We only have results for, I think, 2 or 3 of us. I think that the 3 that we have passed. And so going into this next phase, the postgraduate course, which starts in January and runs for 6 months, it does actually give credit towards the master's degree on completion of the 2 assignments that we have in that period. And the master's degree actually starts in September next year with registration and then the first year of it proper. So what I would ask for in this particular YouTube video is for your prayers, that I'm able to study at the same rate as other people, even though I, as a white person, am seeing things from a different perspective as they are, and that I'm able to have my input into the course as it goes along and assist those with whom I'm studying in the best way that I can. So thank you for your prayers in advance. I hope you've all had a very good Christmas and you will have a good New Year, and I look forward to interacting with you in the new year at some stage. Thank you again for watching, and please subscribe if you've enjoyed it. Okay, bye-bye for now.